Are you one of the many busy professionals working in offices day in and day out? Do you wonder how some people grow their wealth fast, retire early, and play on workdays? Well, you're in luck, because Ginny Bowling hosts this show, Pivot to Prosperity, where she interviews people that can do just that. Play on workdays. Many guests have become financially free. She also interviews people that are on their journey and people that are in support roles, like attorneys, contractors, brokers, and others. Commercial real estate is the common element. She is on a mission to be sure busy professionals know they can own substantial commercial properties too, like apartments, self-storage facilities, and others, and not have to do the work managing them. Passive investing is the key. Syndications are the typical method. Tax write-offs are some of the biggest rewards. Ginny and partners find the deals, build a strong team and business plan, then offer the investment opportunities to passive investors. New episodes are released every Tuesday at 12, so watch for new releases. If you want to get involved, let us know. You need to get pre-qualified to hear about most deals. See the show notes for contact information.
Hello. Ginny Bowling here with Pivot to Prosperity, brought to you by Pivotal Real Estate Investments. And today we have Kenny Johnson with us. And Kenny, thank you for coming on.
Jenny, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, good. I appreciate that. And I am going to let you introduce yourself for the most part, but I first will say that you are part of one of the masterminds I belong to, and the Raise Masters group has been an integral part of many people's journeys. I think Hunter's done a great job with showing people how they can try to make things faster, smarter, more complete, shall we say. And so you have been working on building your portfolio and your tribe, so to speak. That's kind of how I look at it, as we have our tribes that we're trying to find the people that want to invest with us. And so we're peers. And so tell us about your background.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. I've been here my whole life, so a good old Southern boy. And I worked for 10 years in the sales and customer service world. I'm 36 today. And
Today?
Oh, no, sorry, just today. No, not today. My bad. Not today.
Okay.
Today I am, but not as of today. I'm 36 years old. And I was the classic directionless college grad. I did study graphic design. I enjoyed art. Met my wife in college, so loved college for that reason. But I realized as soon as I graduated, I really didn't want to do graphic design. I was more of a people person, and I was afraid of being that guy stuck in the cubicle or behind the computer screen that was just not with people. So, and as I was engaged, I was looking for a job, and my friend was starting a landscaping company. And I said, hey, I'll give you a year because I don't know what else I'm going to do. Well, that was a 10-year job. The company kept growing, and I kept going along with what he was doing. And I settled into that customer service position and really enjoyed people. So that was my sort of career start. And as we were talking earlier, my lightning bolt moment was when I turned 30. I realized I wasn't going where I wanted to go, and the next 10 years scared me if I would have just repeated that same script. And my son, who was 3, was a major player in me pivoting toward real estate and toward freedom and that world of a little more ownership of my time. So I bought my first rental property about 6 months after I went to this conference, when I turned 30, real estate conference. And since then, probably last five and a half years, been buying single family homes, have done some commercial purchases as well, mainly rentals and fix and flips. And then about a year and a half ago, I bought 10 properties in a 12-month span. And that put me in a position of hurt because I wasn't set up with my crews and my contractors as well as I thought I was. And ended up selling almost all of those. I think I held on to one of those houses. I was originally planning on renting out all of them. But market shifts and just money, needed to sell them all. Made money on all of them, but not at the margins I wanted. And that's where we have met in Raise Masters as I've learned about syndications.
Yes, it's a powerful thing, these syndications. And going back, though, for a second to talk about how we tend to just do the job, right? We think we're where we're supposed to be, maybe not. But in my world, I was hired by the Department of Transportation, And my folks were happy. Oh, good, you got a government job, nice and stable, and stay there forever. And that stay there forever and the pension and all that was still a thing when I
Right.
was, that
Absolutely.
was it was in the 1980s. And the darn salary didn't even pay my student loan. And so I ended up having to leave, and but I always had that stay there and keep
Mm,
that stability. And today people don't feel that way, but it took me a long time to wake up. Even though I was self-employed most of my life, because I was an appraiser I was self-employed. I was self-employed very early,
hmm
but I didn't really grasp even though I was always trying to be cutting edge, I was not in taking the reins like I could have,
Yeah,
you know.
I've learned, I'm still learning, but there has to be there has to be some pain in your life to make a change.
Yeah.
And I think like the danger of anyone listening is I'm just comfortable. I'm just comfortable and I'm just going to coast through my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Oh, wow, I'm 60 years old and I've just coasted the last few years. I never really did anything that I really wanted to do. I'm not saying it was you were suffering every year, but you just were comfortable.
Yeah.
And that turning point for me was when again I turned 30 and my son was growing, and I just hated leaving him, and I hated my wife was struggling in different ways, and our marriage wasn't really going 100%, and I just felt like, man, if I don't do something now, like I'm just gonna be 40 and look back and be like, man, I guess I just will stay here for another 10 years. So that was
Really makes
what
you
it was for me.
understand, yeah, where divorces became such a common thing and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But, and so you have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and how you've evolved from that.
Yeah, I realized as I was getting into syndications and trying to buy bigger things on teams, I needed to stand out from the crowd. And I thought, man, I want to market to a certain audience. I'm in South Carolina, so you got the local meetups you can do, and obviously you kind of max out your friends and family once you start asking too much as you buy bigger things. So the Invested Fathers is my podcast, and I've settled on the importance of dads and how I'm a dad, 36, like I said, I have two kids at home, but it's such a connecting ground with so many males and females actually in regards to the importance of dads that I'd love to help this type of person as they career, as they, are husbands, as they obviously father the young children or older children, teens or even college. And that was what started it. And if anyone starts a podcast out there, you always start and it's really messy and you don't know what you're doing. And the interviews can sometimes be really boring and slow, but you get better. We're on episode 60 now. So really have enjoyed these connections around the topic of dadhood.
So it's actually you're kind of helping dads see how they can get not only financial freedom, but freedom to be fathers.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's that concept of what are you investing into? The first thing you think of is usually money, like stocks and assets and real estate.
Right.
But you're investing your time into things as well and your energy. And, that concept for me was I thought as a provider of my household, I just needed to be working all the time. That was what dads do. You just work all the time and you put food on the table. But I wasn't providing my presence and my energy and my sort of instilling how do you become a man, that kind of stuff into my kids. And there was a big disconnect. And that was when I sort of realized, how can I buy some time to be with my family? Let's invest into real estate and let's, do this flip or do this rental. So that was the key indicator for me. And I've just loved the returns. Again, investing returns, those are sometimes financial conversation things, but they don't have the returns I've received in being with my family more has been a healthy marriage, a healthy body, a healthy relationship with my kids. I'm a churchgoer. My faith is strong, and I can now do these things that were really not focused on at all in my 20s because I was just working.
Yeah, you have freedom to be yourself now.
Yeah,
Really?
and invest in yourself. We need help.
Yeah.
We need help in our minds. We need help in our bodies and our relationships and how we communicate with people. But if you're just always strapped for time, if you're always busy, it's what everyone says. Hey, how are you? Oh, I'm just so busy. What are you busy in? Are you busy? I always like to say when someone says, hey, oh, I'm just so busy. Is it the good busy or the bad busy?
Yeah. You're right. And it makes a difference. So when you are talking, you and I were talking before we started recording, your conversation often goes to the fatherhood. It's not entirely about the financial thing because, well, I'm asking actually, is it
Yeah.
because everybody knows that they need to do enough of the right thing for the financial that the concentration really should be on the fatherhood?
You know, um, I like to think of it like, what does success mean for you? So typically there's a financial number that you want in the bank account or in passive cash flow or something that defines success for you. But one of the harder KPIs or numbers to look at is, what's your relationship like with your son? How do you put a number on that? How do you, or your kids, not just your son? Or how's your marriage? Like what are the steps? What's the success there? Have you, gone on a date? Are you guys touching? Is communication strong? Like there's metrics that are hard to talk about with people because they're, maybe awkward or it's more personal and, sensitivity or feelings are talked about. And I feel like we all as humans are engaging in these types of things, but it's just sometimes the first topic is what are the metrics on this deal, or let's talk about money. So I think what I've learned is as I talk with other dads or other investors, it's that motivation of that why is why they're doing what they're doing. So let's, put some talk around that. Let's figure out what that actually looks like. Hey, why would you invest in this deal with me? Well, it's a 27% return. Oh, okay. Well, would that give you some more time to scale back a little bit from the pressures of work? And then once they start thinking about it, it's like, man, so they start connecting the dots on this deal, giving you some success with your kids and with your wife and with your family as a dad. So that's been so rewarding for me. And as I analyze deals and as I analyze my business career, my future, am I looking for a certain number in the bank account? Yeah, I'm trying to grow my wealth, but I can't miss along the way my involvement and my time with my kids and my family.
Right. So true. So true. And it's funny, it just talking about it always makes you think about really your own situation and whatnot. And you just hit on three things: sensitivity. One of them was touch, though. And it's interesting because so many dads aren't touchy, right?
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
it's worth sharing maybe that, for instance, I felt very close to my parents, but we didn't kiss every time we saw each other. We didn't hug all the time. We didn't even say I love you all the time, but it was known. It was very well communicated otherwise in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when I married a guy that was less like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that in fact had a dynamic where people became estranged
Mm.
fairly readily. I made touching a really important part of our family.
Yeah.
And like,
Hugs and
even if the
kisses and
kids,
hand holding and, just closeness.
well, it's funny. I didn't do it as much with him because he wasn't that way, but with the kids, I did
Okay. Interesting.
as much as I could,
Yes.
So they
Right.
fought, they had to hug it out and things,
Yes. We do that too. Give 'em a hug.
strange dynamic, but yeah. So but it just goes to show you there's different ways to convey all of it. And the biggest thing is to be present, right?
Yeah. A message I've heard over and over, I've interviewed, 60 dads and there's been some females too, but one of the common themes that gets put out almost every time is leading by example. So, you mentioned your dad and how you guys loved each other and showed that love, you and your husband, and then you and your kids. And I feel like, again, what I've heard through these interviews, you can tell something over and over to somebody, hey, I love you, or hey, I care about you, you're the most important person in the world to me, whatever it is. But if you're not showing it and not acting it and exemplifying it so that someone watching actually sees it, it doesn't always get passed down in that way. And there is that weird disconnect. Hey, dad says, this, but he's never around, or he's never, we wouldn't know unless he just told us, you know? And that's, I think, one of the saddest truths and one of the most convicting things as a dad is like, what am I showing by example? I would ask you a question. You know, you said that you and your dad had that connection that, you know, and everyone has their own love language. It's not like you have to look this way to you know, do it right. What was it that, you know, you knew that your dad loved you? Was there like a story or situation that you can just remember?
Well, part of it, it was funny. We grew up with, he was traveling all the time. He was never hardly home during the week.
Mm-hmm.
And there was four of us kids. So my mom had her hands full. She had no support group.
Man.
But when he came home on the weekends, it was all about the kids. And she had the weekend to herself for the most part. But he had us bring all the neighborhood kids over and we'd play football and all the sports, you know, pretty much.
Yeah.
And we had horses and motorcycles and all the toys pretty much. We were water skiers. And
Wow.
so he made all that happen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so that was something that we all just knew it was because they cared. And
Yeah.
not that anybody we weren't well to do, but they found a way. They used to flip houses before it was a thing. And that was to get money to go get more toys. And, you know, it was
Yeah.
funny.
No, I love that idea of like the neighborhood kids and, you know, playing football and dad sort of being quarterback or whatever it is, round the troops. I feel
Truly,
like
he
that's
was the
just,
quarterback. But
that's
then what
great.
he did is he taught each of us to be the quarterback.
Yeah. There you go.
So, yeah, this is how
Learning
you
from
call a
dad.
play. And
Yeah. And it stands out to you like that, like you have that memory of him being there doing that.
yep,
And there was times he was away and, you know, you missed him, sure. But when he was there, it was like, he
was
wasn't
present.
just like clocked out, you know, doing whatever on the
Right.
chair or on the phone or whatever.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. And you gave your sweet, dear mom a break who had you. 4 is a good number.
Yeah. Yeah. She still ended up cooking dinner most of the time. We were in the country though, too. But, you
Okay.
know, she enjoyed having him home, of course, obviously. But it's different for everybody, you know, but you give what you can is the thing, I think.
Yeah.
Different dads have different ways. I mean, like, you know, my husband, then one of his endearing things was his humor.
Mm-hmm.
People felt so endeared just because of the way he could talk, you know, to people. He passed away recently, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's why I'm saying past tense. But you do what you can, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you know we're not all wired like Kenny Johnson or you know this your late husband, but you lean into who you are. I feel like that self-awareness and you being able to figure out this is how I'm wired, and you also have to analyze, you know, what do my kids need, and it's a beautiful thing when that connection happens.
You know, one of the things we talked about before that I think ought to be brought up at this point too, anyway, is like I volunteer at a place where kids that are abandoned, abused, and neglected are in a group home. And so many of them don't have, well, they don't have a parent, anybody that's claiming them, basically, or taking them.
Right.
And they might have family, but they can't take them for whatever reason. But they're in these group homes. And what I found, and I've been affiliated with the group over 20 years, I guess now,
Wow.
off and on, off and on. I was gone
Yeah.
most of that. But
Yeah.
when I worked in the county offices, it's a county run home. We used to raise money for them back 10, 20 years ago. It's what it is. But so anyway, missing figure of either parent, both parents, any parent is huge.
Yeah.
And you just unless you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, especially like that, you know, that's kind of how some of these kids are raised with the absent fathers. You know, the father thinks they're there just because the kid knows them or knows their name. Maybe doesn't see them, but at least knows their name.
You know, I'm reading a book right now called The Intentional Father. And great book. I am a Christian, and it is a faith-based book. It talks a lot about, you know, raising your kids, sons, you know, sort of to manhood, and faith is a big part of that. And they earlier in the book they talk about the 5 kinds of dads, and there's the irresponsible dad, who's just completely clocked out, absent, has no, involvement at all. The ignorant dad, so he's there, but he really has no idea of like what he's doing. He's just sort of present in some way. Inconsistent dad, who he tries, like he's there sometimes, but sometimes his career or his hobbies get in the way, and he's just kind of half there, half not there. And then the next one that I resonated with was the involved dad. He's making breakfast. He's at the sports games. Involved enough in his kids' lives, but there's not an intentional plan. There's not like a strategy on how he's doing it. He's just sort of trying his best without sort of a mindset of like, this is what you could or should be doing. And then the last one is the intentional father, who basically has things in place, has a goal, has, more of intentions around raising the kids. And when you talk about, foster kids or orphans or kids that they have they have zero choice of being in the position they're in. This is what life gave them. It's heartbreaking. And I feel like you've seen it firsthand. There's a sense of like, what can we do to help these kids? And like, where do we point them? And how do we give them hope and love? And that's honestly where my faith has stepped up, being a Christian and, learning what Jesus has done, that there is no perfect dad, just period. And, but I think the involvement that you're doing and just being, you said it's inconsistent. You know what? Just the fact that you're still doing it, still talking about it, that shows you're giving your time, you're giving some energy, some thought toward these kids. And that is a beautiful thing. And I'm very thankful that you're doing that, because I do feel like that is probably the number one issue that America is facing, that our world is facing, is that lack of fatherhood or parents that are raising our youth. And they're just going to come up and have some issues.
Well, I'm so glad you went into that too, because I also am a huge believer that kids today don't get a whole lot of education in not only financial literacy, but civics. They don't understand the politics. And it's been so divisive these last decade.
Week or two to hit a climax, but yes, decades is more like it.
Yeah. So, and I think that the only way to start resolving it is from the family.
Absolutely. You're preaching to the choir on that one. I'm a firm believer in get your household in a place where you are showing love, showing, hey, your view is different than mine. Let me listen to you. Let me respect what you're saying. Let's learn about this. Why do you believe this? You're not just trying to force feed and dictate what our kids should do. You want to raise them to make good decisions on their own, but it starts in the household. And then I'm actually, my next step is, then it goes into the neighborhood. Who's your neighbor? Have you talked to them? My wife's got this little text string with the moms in the neighborhood. You grew up in the country, so, this doesn't work for everybody, but hey, you know what? In this text string of 6 moms, they're all different moms. They're not all the same like-minded person, but we're hanging out together. We're loving each other. We're helping each other. And I think that can also be like, let's change America and let's just change the world through household first, neighborhood next, and then just see where that goes.
Yeah. I can only hope that that's going to.
I know, but it starts in the household.
This defensiveness that is out there is got to stop. That's what's.
Have you had any? I don't know what ages these people are, girls that you are seeing, but you mentioned like the financial education, civility, and just how do we treat people and respect each other. Have you been able to have some breakthroughs in any of those ways with these kids, or find out where they're at?
The sad thing about it is you can only mentor one child. Okay. So all that you go through to get approved, and you only are mentoring one. So I've asked them if they'll put all of us mentors together so that we can do things together with the kids. Because I can't even invite another kid along.
Okay.
Unless that mentor. So I'm trying to break their mold a little bit and get it so that we can do more group things, especially the holidays.
Yeah.
But it's and so financial education, and you talk through that stuff, and I just was talking actually to Catherine Bell about what did she use for her financial literacy training that she had done. And so I do have the, cash
flow?
No, the guy, the guru that teaches in a lot of the churches,
Okay.
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey. Yep. As soon as you said it, I was about to say it. Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. So there's a kid version, I think, too. I have the adult version, and I one of the things I was thinking is I need to see. I'll reach out to Ramsey and see if I can get maybe them to donate some of the teenage versions,
There you go.
and then give them to the mentors and try to, or at least to the home,
Yeah.
But I'm willing to do classes or whatever, and it's just you're not allowed to know what the identities of the. There's so many issues.
Yeah.
So many issues.
My encouragement to listeners who are, also facing this would be, who are you talking to? And how can you make, especially if it's a younger audience, making it fun or making it interesting? I think you and I, as you get older, there's kind of a sense of like, I just want to learn. And, you can sort of see why you're doing these things. For kids, my mind was so turned off to financial education as a youth. All I saw, my dad bought real estate, and all I saw was the property management role as a kid. Always taking phone calls, leaving. There's the classic story that we have of, Thanksgiving Day, we got a phone call, someone locked themselves out of the house, and dad went to go let the person in the house, right before we cut the turkey kind of deal. But all I have to say is, learning the principles of finances and, whether it be investing into real estate or, whatever that is, managing a budget for kids can be huge as they figure out life and all that good stuff at an earlier age.
One of our experiences was we had a tenant move out, and we decided, well, I convinced my my husband to come help clean it out. So we brought the kids too.
There you go.
They were pretty young at the time.
Okay.
And should have made it more of a treat kind of a thing or something. We should have had probably something to get them through it. We didn't know when we opened the door it was going to be so bad.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yes.
it was really bad. And so it left a bad taste for the kids.
So they equated real estate with that experience. It's exactly right. I had this.
Well, mom working a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's something you don't understand and think about it until you kind of reflect back on it. Like, oh, that might have been a bad experience for them to introduce, these things. But, that's again, lessons
Part of
learned.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
They know, they appreciate, they both, well, my son's going to close on his first house next week, and my daughter bought one last year. So they do appreciate that. They're not following the millennial track of rent.
Yeah. Good for them. Are these primary or are they rental investments?
They're primaries.
Cool. Good for them. Great
Yep.
start.
Yeah.
Get a home and go from there.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, let me ask you, well, is there something we should touch on that we haven't already before I ask you the big question here?
No, I would just, if anyone is a dad out there listening right now, I would just say, make it a point to give your kid, when you get home, just undivided attention. Maybe say yes to the first thing he asks you to do. Whether you're tired or not, just try a small step toward being present and engaged with your kids this week. I know there's all sorts of baggages and stress that we bring home with us that our kids don't see, like we talked about. Like, there's just things that they don't know, but they just know what they see when you're there. And I fail in this often, in rather looking at my phone or being distracted or saying no because I'm tired. But the times I do say yes and lean in and engage, I always reap a big investment for my son.
Right. And we have to, of course, correlate that these investments can bring you enough financial freedom to really be able to do that more comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've seen lots of people get total financial freedom, and we know that it's possible. It's just a question of where do you want to go, and so
Yeah.
anyway.
And one more thing, I'll just quickly add to that. We're all taking risks in life, and we talked a little bit about sort of that golden handcuff idea, or just coasting through life. So I would ask, what are you risking with your time and energy today? And that might not be a return that you want if you are strapped as much as you are, and taking that risk or investing with someone like Ginny into this deal that, the returns look promising. It's just, hey, there's a risk with everything. So I would challenge, make those investments and take those risks that are worth it to get you a strong return, not just financially, but with your family and time.
Yeah, you get it on both ends if you try.
Take action.
That's the thing. Yeah. All right. Well, very good. So as I ask everybody towards the end here, and I think you already touched on it, but I'll ask you officially here, is there a pivotal person or event that either has brought you to where you are today or that's pushing you forward to a certain point in time?
Yeah, after thinking about this, it didn't take long for me to realize my son, Moses, who's 8 years old, has been my pivotal person in my life that has projected me to be uncomfortable and take those risks and do what's needed to just be present in his life. So Moses, thank you, buddy. And I have a Daphne as well, who's 3. They could not be more opposite in their demeanors, but love being a dad. And I think, becoming a dad and raising, this young boy to be a man has really instilled, the values that I want to exemplify and the traits I want to, instill in him. I have to live those out. I can't just talk about them. And then, of course, doing what I can financially to enable me to have that freedom to be with him and make those memories.
Great. Very good. So true. So true. All right. So tell people how they can reach you. We'll put that in the show notes. But remember, some people on iTunes or Spotify might only hear you. So you might want to spell it.
Kenny Johnson. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the place I'm most active. I'm also on Instagram at Kenny Will Johnson. But I appreciate anyone just engaging with me, liking any of my posts. I'm always trying to build connections with people on a deeper level. I don't need, a million followers. I think if I had the connections that followed me that really cared about the same values I have, I think that would give me that fulfillment. And also likewise, if we can line up if I'm someone that lines up with your values and fatherhood and real estate and freedom of time, love to just connect in that way.
Very good. All right.
And I also have, and the Invested Fathers is my podcast. If that topic interests you, love to have you listen to these interviews as well.
Yeah, and we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Thank you, Ginny. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. You take care.
Thank you.